Hi, everybody. It's Chris Grimm, and it is Deep Work Fast. And today I want to talk about a topic that seems to be important to everyone, which is wanting the people around you at home and work to show up, to do what they say they're going to do, to respond. Wouldn't that be great? To sometimes do things better than you ask them to do. And often that is not what's happening, right? Many people tell me stories, and I've lived it myself, where people either don't do the stuff or they do it in a way that does not match what I was expecting and what I thought we agreed to. So today I want to talk about some techniques that you can use to change some of your own behavior and thinking and allow people to show up in a new way. Now, some of this might make you uncomfortable. And most of you, if you know me, you know I live for that, right? This is deep work fast. For it to be deep work fast and for you to get new results, chances are you need to shift something so that other people will also shift. That's kind of the way things work. I don't know if you've noticed that. And what I'm not going to ask you to do, by the way, is nag people more. I don't want you to lean in. I don't want you to overfunction. I actually want to teach you how to do something different, which is leaning back. So the first thing I want to talk about today is accepting the reality of maybe mismatched skill, time, and expectations. This is very common. Now, in your mind, you might think the thing that they're supposed to do is easy. Maybe it's a part of their job. Maybe it's just a chore or a task at home. And you believe there's agreement between you and the other person. So I want to break this down into two pieces because I want you to just be aware. Deep Work Fast is about you paying attention to what's really going on and then starting to shift your awareness around the situation so that other people can show up differently. And I promise they will. So this one's important. Mismatched skill means we've asked someone to do something, or maybe we didn't ask. Maybe they committed to doing something and they don't have the skills to actually pull it off. This is more common than you think, both in the workplace and in people's homes. And so part of understanding that is accepting that to be true. Now, that means you may have to have a different conversation with the person than you were planning. Instead of asking them why they didn't do it, maybe you need to ask questions like, how can you complete this? You said you were going to do this. I'm not here to yell at you. I'm not here to create any kind of conflict with you. I just want to understand what's keeping this from being done. By being curious and asking that, it gives the other people space to maybe tell you the truth. Now, I'm not saying they were lying to you before, but I want to bring something to your attention. Most people do not want confrontation in the moment. And what that means, and I'm sure you know this to be true about yourself and other people, but I'm just going to shine a little light on it right now. And that is many people default to saying yes to things that they really either don't want to do. They don't know if they have time to do it. If you're their boss, by the way, they probably have some boss pleasing, people pleasing. You might want that as the boss, but you probably don't want a whole bunch of people saying yes to things when they actually can't get it done, because that means they're placating you in the beginning of the process so that you can be upset later. Why are we doing that? I want you to be aware of stuff like that. Now let's come back to this. A lot of people have been conditioned in their home and at work to people please. One of the ways it looks like I just said is often saying yes before we figure out what it actually means. So part of us getting like real clear about reality and accepting that reality is, first of all, can they really say yes to this? Can they do it? And if they're going to say yes, you probably want to slow down for a minute and make sure that your expectations around not just how it's going to get done, but maybe when it's going to get done. And you may have some pet peeves, right? You may want certain things around whatever this is to look and feel a certain way. And oftentimes when I'm coaching executives, by the way, so this might be you, but it also could be you as a parent or a partner, is that we think people have read our mind, or we think they have been paying attention if they're used to watching us do this. I know as a parent, I had to learn this the hard way. I often thought people were paying attention. And then when it was time for my kids to learn how to cook, do the laundry, whatever it is, I started to realize they weren't actually paying that close of attention. And so then it was time for them to do the chore or them to do the things. The way it looked and felt was very different than when I was doing it. And I know when I coach execs, leaders of all levels, by the way, this happens in the workplace all the time. So even though you think you've explained it, or you think someone's been watching you or someone else, or you think they've learned the software, whatever it is, don't take those things for granted. Anchor into reality, find out for sure that the person's saying yes to what you think they're agreeing to, and the two of you are super clear around what those outcomes are going to be and when. Then I want to make sure that you know how to set agreements with people. This is really a whole thing under itself. Now, anybody who's worked with me or other people who do facilitation or coaching probably have heard things like ground rules. I'm a big ground rules fan. It means explicit, proactive agreement with a person. Now, again, proactive means before they do the thing. Before you think you've agreed that they're going to go off and do the thing at home or at work, make sure, time out. Let's make sure we're talking about the things that are important and you make explicit agreements. Do you understand this is important to me? Do you need resources? Are you sure that you can do this? Now, if you grew up in a home where your parents spoke like that, or maybe they managed you that way, you might not like it. You may feel like that's micromanaging, or you could be one of those people who would say to me, I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to explain that to people. It's their job. I shouldn't have to explain that to my teenager because they're 18 and they can drive, whatever. That's not true. Those shoulds we have in our head rarely work out for anyone. So make agreements and making agreements something that you're willing to do. And if you're willing to spend time on the front end, I promise it will keep the back end process, all of you waiting for them to do the thing, oftentimes waiting to be disappointed because maybe they've disappointed you in the past, or if it's not tracking towards progress the way you were experiencing it because you didn't have agreements around process and outcome, right? Later, I'll tell you, I told you so, but I don't want to have to do that. I would like you to get more comfortable, maybe than you are. Slow down and take the time. Maybe you feel like you're too busy to do this. I promise you're not, because if you're watching this and you want people to show up more and you know that you're disappointed often from people, then you need to do this. These are easy fixes, but most of us don't do that. And let's talk again why. Most of us, if we're used to being in control, I'm a perpetrator here. I like to get things done quickly. And so I don't want to have to stop and have the same conversation over and over again. And I'm sure you're the same. But this leads us to over-functioning. It leads us to oftentimes leaning in too much and taking the power away from the people who we say we want to show up. I have two businesses. One is focused on corporate. The other is focused on people outside of corporate. So I get to hear stories in both places. Stories about work, stories about people's partnerships, right? Their marriage, their boyfriends and girlfriends, their children, how their families work. And then, of course, I get to then compare it to how they talk about work and the people they work with. And I see themes. So if you're a person that's exhausted all the time, resentful, angry, often wishing those other people would show up, one of the things that you have to do is learn to be a little uncomfortable by letting go of control and creating the space for people to show up. And like I said, accepting that reality, making agreements, and then allowing them to demonstrate to you that they are committed, that they are good at their job, or that they value the relationship. Let me just say that again. We take people's power away. Now, maybe there's evidence, right? I've lived it, and everybody I've coached have told me the stories. So I know in real life people make mistakes. I know people say yes to things that they should not. I know sometimes people say no to things verbally and sometimes passive aggressively. You know what that looks like, right? The no straightforward doesn't happen a lot of times, because at work people think, well, that's insubordination. I can't say no to my boss when they tell me how to do this. And in your home, most of the time, I mean, unless someone really likes conflict and they want to go head to head with you all the time, they're probably not going to say no all the time. Instead, they're going to say yes, or they're going to kind of say yes, or they're going to imply that they're agreeing with you. And then you're going to think something's going to happen. And guess what's going to happen? Nada. Nothing. That's a no. So we have to learn how to create space for people to demonstrate their commitment. Now, this is rough for a lot of people. So I'm going to take it slow, and I want you to make some notes, and I want you to think about this and read the blog a few times if this needs to sink in for you. If you want to feel different, if you as a boss want to trust your people, you want to know that they're reliable, you want to know that they're going to do their best, not just some slack job. And in your home, you want to trust the people are going to show up. You want to feel valued. You want to feel respected. You want to feel like you're agreeing with people and that they're actually in the conversation, like saying yes on purpose instead of not just yes to please you. For that to happen, you've got to get uncomfortable with allowing potentially a void. And what that means is that you have to receive. You have to wait for the person to do the thing on their time. Now, at work, there's often deadlines. There's often a whole bunch of parameters in place so that when you're agreeing, if those agreements are happening, well, then you have every right to expect those things to happen in a certain time frame. But a whole bunch of our life happens with much more ambiguity than that. So we impose timelines. We try to impose urgency. We try to impose what's important to us on other people. And it doesn't always translate, which is why often many of us are disappointed. So you've got to kind of learn to, you actually have to learn to live with whatever shows up. And then you have to be willing to have what I call a recontracting agreement. Now, I say that to people personally or at work. It just means you're going time out, like, I wish this would have happened. And it didn't. So I don't want you to get upset. I just want you to help me understand where in the process there was a breakdown, because I thought this. If you learn how to do this in a way that doesn't shame people, that doesn't make them feel like they're coming for a fight, or that it's going to be a ping pong game of skepticism, cynicism, a whole bunch of, ugly, toxic behaviors. And by the way, I say that, and I'm not talking about like horrible, dysfunctional people in horrible, dysfunctional places. I'm talking about us being normal, everybody, right? When we don't want to have confrontation, even a little bit, we don't do it. And then we wait. And we wait until we're disappointed over and over again, where there's potentially chronic behavior of people not showing up because we've trained them that it's okay. And we didn't do that intentionally, of course. We trained them because after the first time it didn't happen, instead of recontracting, right? Hey, let's talk about this and making new agreements so it doesn't happen the same way. We let it go, and then we festered. And then the next time, it often happens again and again and again. I know this because you know it's true too. We have tons of people out there who part of their personal brand is they never open the email attachments, or they never respond to an email, or they never call you back. That's just the tip of the iceberg. It is human. But people give us what we allow. People will step up. I have seen many, many situations, some that we thought were way over the edge, where we turned it around. And every time we had to use the techniques that I'm talking to you here, leaning in and doing more, or using punitive, overly controlling, angry language or behavior rarely gets you a new level of commitment to people. And so let's go back over this. I want you to accept reality. I want you to get to as close to reality with people as possible in understanding, is it a right match? Like, should they be the person doing it? Can they do it? And what are the expectations of this situation? What's it going to look like when it's great? And what's it going to look like if it's not great? Like, have those conversations and make an agreement about all the things in the process that actually matter to you and to them, and give them space to say they can't do it. Give them space to say they need help. Give them the space to say they're concerned about it or they don't know why it's important to you. Like, allow the conversations to happen. Now, I don't mean excuses, everybody, and I want to make sure that's super clear. I have a pet peeve about excuses, and I think they happen because we don't have enough proactive making of agreements. We don't sit down and have what sometimes feels, like I said, that confrontation or a proactive, hard conversation about accountability and responsibility and just value and respect in the relationship, no matter what it is. We don't do those things enough, and we end up with damage. So I want you to, starting now, today, pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention to what's happening between you and the other people. Look at how grounded in reality those situations are, or are they all like in your head and you guys aren't actually having the conversations with each other about expectations, about what you need from each other, and about what those outcomes should be. Once you start to observe that, you can change it. I promise you this works. I know that it's uncomfortable. And for people like me, I'm a recovering, over-functioning, controlling person myself. But I promise that you can do that. And people will surprise you when you start to give them the space, when you respect when they say no, and when you allow a level of conversation that creates alignment and accountability without a lot of drama, without a lot of whatever, just the noise. You will have a different atmosphere on your team, and you will have very different atmosphere in your home. Okay, so this is 20 minutes or less. I want to do that and get you out of here on time. I urge you to read the blog. If you haven't done that, the link is below. If you need help doing this, you know where to find me. But I will say this is more than worth it. I promise you it works. So what are you waiting for? Let's go. Okay, bye.